Hare Krishna, Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Buddhalaya Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati. Nirvisesa Satmivati Pasachita. So I want to thank everybody who's spoken so far, and every word that they say rang true with me. Especially what Tamahar said and what Stacia just said, because Bhakti Charu was also very, very friendly to me. And I would wonder sometimes, here was, a Bengali Vaishnav gentleman through and through. And, I was some rough and tumble ex-hippie from Detroit. So, but he was always extremely kind to me and gentle, and his, I think Tamahar mentioned that his demeanor, his character was so steady. It was always, in the modes of goodness, pure goodness. I heard a story today that when he took initiation, now I don't have a reference for this, but when he took initiation first, second, and then sannyas, there were some devotees that were, talking to Prabhupada, well, what if he falls down, because this is like very quickly. And Srila Prabhupada said, if he falls, he'll fall into the modes of goodness. So, that's the kind of character that he was, And, I've known him for many years. We've gotten closer recently because of the TOVP, but I met him for the first time in San Francisco. I had moved out there when ISKCON was going through a lot of turmoil in the early 80s. And he came out to visit Atreya Rishi, who was the head of the project out there. So we would drive in the car, and Atreya and him would argue, and Maharaj was always talking, as I think Tamahar and Sesha said, you have to stay within ISKCON. ISKCON is Prabhupada's body. Prabhupada is the founder of Acharya, was loyal to a T to Srila Prabhupada and to ISKCON. And so I was immediately attracted to that because I've always been a company man. So, he and I saw eye to eye on that. Of course, he was much more surrendered than I was, but still, it was very sweet to always be with him. And he came to our wedding in Australia, and it was very kind of him to come there and bless us. And we got whenever Swaha and I would come to Mayapur, we would meet with Maharaj. And he would often ask us up to his apartment for lunch and these wonderful prasadam feasts. I mean, I would always have to kind of leave on my knees because, I'd eat so much. But he was always concerned with our comfort and, how are we doing in Krishna consciousness? Always so concerned and so sweet. There's a movement now on about devotee care and everything. Well, he had it, within him. He was born with it, devotee care. No one had to teach him anything, So, it was such a pleasure to be with him and to have his association. And I was fortunate. I was at that lunch that Tamahar was speaking about also with Prabir. And 2 days in a row. So we were very fortunate. But I got to know Maharaj very closely over the last few years because he was very supportive of the TOVP. And whenever we needed help, he was there to help us. As a matter of fact, this spring, he was scheduled to come to the U.S. to travel with Brajavilas and myself around to various temples to reconfirm all the pledges that have been made. So he had volunteered to come to like practically every temple to do that. So, and that was his nature. He saw that the TOVP was one of Prabhupada's main desires, and whatever he could do to help, he would. even if it was at the sacrifice of his own project, which he did do recently. He sacrificed a sum of money that was supposed to go to his project in Florida and sent it to the TOVP. So that was just the way that he was. And, I will miss him terribly. He was one of my mentors, his sweet demeanor. And, because, my wife is Bengali, everything was like big family. So I will miss him terribly, but I know that I can't say if he's with Krishna or not, but he's certainly with Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was his life and his soul. And for that, I always fall at his feet. And, I just will miss his association so much. So thank you very much. And I'll turn it over now to my wife, Swaha.
Hare Krishna, Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Pinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharini, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vanchakaputarivascha Kripa Sindhu Japatita Nam Ram Vaishnavetya. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you all, because my husband has been sharing over different forums, and it's been very healing. The last few days we've been just totally immersed in Bhakti Charu Swami Katha, hearing from devotees all over the world and hearing his classes as well. And it's been like a soothing balm for our hearts. And before I say anything else, my heart goes out to all the disciples of Maharaj, because if I feel such feelings of loss, I can only imagine how you all are feeling. And I don't know if you watched the program that my husband was on from Mayapur, and we are trying to do something to help you channel your grief by helping build Maharaj's Samadhi in Mayapur. And so hopefully, we can do something to help and serve Maharaj for all his love and kindness he's shown us for so many years. The day that we got this news, that morning, even though he had been sick, we were all hoping he was going to recover, because everyone was praying for him. But when we find, that morning when my husband told me, I was like in total disbelief and shock. And my husband really helped me. He said, I'm writing my offering to Maharaj. Why don't you sit and write your offering? And that was really helped me, process my grief. So I'll just read my offering that I wrote to Maharaj, because there's so much to say, because, going to Mayapur for me is never going to be the same again, because going to Mayapur meant, going to Maharaj's apartment and just seeing him smiling, running down the stairs. It's so informal in Mayapur, you just stop and talk. It's just like, so nice. So we will miss him so much. So this is the offering I wrote to Maharaj. Our dearest, most beloved and respected Srila Bhakti Okay. My heart weeps and tears flood my eyes as I write this humble offering. I feel like you were wounded in battle as one of the bravest generals in our Senapati Acharya Srila Prabhupada's army, who chose to fight on the front lines despite all the risks. And like Bhishma Dev, lying on a bed of arrows, you endured the hospital stay until it was the most glorious day of Guru Purnima and Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj's disappearance day, that Guru and Krishna called you back to the spiritual world within their loving embrace. We don't know how we will carry on the mission of Srila Prabhupada without your love and personal guidance. It's a deep personal loss for us at our TOVP family, and especially for me. You were always so very kind and loving to me. Your presence at our wedding was specially appreciated by my parents, who felt an immediate bond with you because of being Bengali. I remember sitting down to take prasad at Srila Prabhupada's centennial celebration, and you were seated beside my good husband. And in an amazing gesture of humility, you took a piece of prasad from his plate, and then he took from yours, and I took from his. And it was such a spontaneously loving and fun prasad honoring party. When my whole family visited Mayapur a few years back, you invited us for prasad and fed us lovingly. Your loving disciples, trained in perfect Vaishnava etiquette, were offering water at the table to wash our hands, but I declined the offer, and I told my daughters and son-in-law to go to the washroom, which they did. But you personally showed me to your bathroom to wash my hands. In all humility, I accepted, but I couldn't believe how attentive you were to everyone. You are like a family member to me, Maharaj, and it's so painful to bear your loss. When you came to take prasad at my home the last time, you personally cooked a prep to show me one quick and easy prep. I will forever cherish that memory. When I went to the temple that evening, my friends told me how you had said that I had served you wonderful Bengali prasad. Tears of appreciation welled up in my eyes because I had felt that my cooking was not quite up to the mark that day, and certainly not up to the standard how you feed us in Mayapur. You have always been the most stalwart supporter of the TOVP and organized a fundraising event in Kolkata where you enthusiastically led the whole ceremony of the Abhishek of Lord Nityananda's Padukas, despite suffering from the pain of shingles. You are a true leader because you have followed Srila Prabhupada's example, followed faithfully in his lotus footsteps, and understood his cherished desire to see the TOVP built. We feel lost without you. You have guided and encouraged me in my feeble efforts at Bengali preaching by personally taking the trouble to record an episode in your apartment. I could go on and on, but I will end with the most loving note you sent my husband on his birthday and the gift you wanted to give him. So when you came to our house, you said you needed my help in offering a gift to my husband. And I agreed, of course. But when I heard what it was, I said, Maharaj, you have so much service. Why do you want to take on this headache? And your words are etched in my memory because they were so memorable. You said, it's a joy for my heart to offer this gift. Unfortunately, dear Damodar Prasad, your disciple knows that I have not been able to help yet, but I will, better late than never. And I'm sorry, Maharaj, I have taken so long unnecessarily, but now, broken-hearted as I am, I will try to do it. Remembering Gopakumar's return to our beloved Lord Krishna, I'm sure everyone, especially Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, are happy to have you back, and that is our only solace as we carry on without your loving presence. With deep gratitude and prayers at your lotus feet, I beg to remain your humble servant, Swahadasi. Thank you so much. All glories to Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ambaresh Prabhu and Mother Swaha, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of this. It really means so much to us. Thank you. So next we have our next group of speakers that are due to come on. We're not sure if Mother Satyasara is here. We're not seeing you in the list. So if it's okay with Shamala Kishori, we can go ahead and continue with you, followed by Badahari Prabhu and Mother Kosharupa.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. I feel very honored and grateful to be part of this Sangha. It's actually been one of the most devastating times of my life. It's been very difficult. I always, as a kid, as a child, I always anticipated this day happening. And even though I anticipated it so much, when it actually did, I was overwhelmed with how painful and how shocking it was, despite knowing that this is inevitable. And I've been thinking so much about Narottam and Srinivasacharya and how much separation they felt from all the acharyas that were older than them were slowly passing away. And those of us in the younger generation are just going to experience that one after the other, all these wonderful devotees that mean so much to us. Personally, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was, as Sesha Prabhu was saying, he made everybody feel like he was part of their family. And he did that with my family. He was also my Shiksha, he is my Shiksha Guru. I first met him when I was about 3 or 4 years old. We were living in Rotterdam in Belgium. My family, my sister was 2 years older than me. The first memory I have is looking at him arriving. You know how the Rotterdam castle is there, and then next to it on the side is the apartments, and we lived in one of those. And so we were looking outside the window down. We were on the second floor looking down, and Maharaj was walking, and we were so excited. Even though we were so young, we were so excited to see him. And I remember, even though I was a child, its memory stays in my mind that he looked up and waved at us in the window. And many years later, he actually, when we were traveling with him in Europe, he actually mentioned that memory that he had of us as little children, which really struck me, because even though we were kids, he held on to that memory as a special moment, interaction. He was so personal like that. One little anecdote from his time in Rotterdam. He stayed there for about a month. I was, of course, very young, so I don't remember everything. My father and mother shared this story with me, that there was like a thicket of nettles near the temple. And Maharaj, he's such an expert cook, so he asked the devotees to collect nettles, and he prepared a preparation like a sabji out of the nettle, I guess the leaves or some part of the plant. And my father was sharing this in a recent one of the memorials, and he said that the prasad was so delicious, even though it had come from this plant, which is, if you simply touch it, it pricks you and it burns, and it's like such a unpleasant plant to come in contact with. And yet Maharaj's touch, he transformed the plant into this beautiful dish. And so my father was saying how this is a metaphor for Maharaj as a person, how he would, no matter who he interacted with, would transform that into a beautiful encounter and transform our hearts like that nettle plant. So that was a little pastime I wanted to share from that time. Later on, when I was living, I grew up in New Goloka community in North Carolina, and it's a very small community, but somehow, despite the smallness of it, I got this incredible fortune that Maharaj came there to have his base in America for several years. He had his base in Durham, North Carolina. So over many years, he would come there very frequently and give us his association. And at that time, of course, being a teenager, I think it was his impact on my life at that time was, I don't even know where I would be now if it wasn't for him, because as a teenager, it's very a time where you're very impressionable. And Maharaj's influence on my spiritual life was so important to me in those years. He became, he just became so dear to me and my family and my sister. We asked Maharaj, is there any way we can get more of your association? And he invited my sister and I to come with him to Europe over 2 summers. So we actually traveled with him through many different countries in Europe, and anyway, I have many memories of that, but to keep it short, just a few things that come to mind. He would ask my sister and I to, he would request us to play mridanga for him, actually, in different programs. And I was always very touched by that, because there was many, men who could play, but he would call us over and, can you play mridanga? And he would ask us, and we were young, and it really meant so much to us. It really encouraged us in our spiritual lives. He was like a father to us. He took us under his wing. And also I was reflecting on how he was like a grandmother, because he would ask us about our meals, about how's your accommodation, all the things that a grandmother would do, very warm and friendly. And he showed us how to cut a mango. Like he said, that proper way to cut it is little squares, and so then you can kind of pop it out and eat the squares without getting the fibers in your teeth. Another thing I want to share is that as these times were happening, I was a late teenager, early 20s. I was very inspired by him, and also simultaneously very inspired by Indradyumna Maharaj. I had an completely equal amount of love and appreciation for both of them. They both had transformed my spiritual life so much. So I was feeling very, very conflicted. And this was over the course of several years. I was actually very torn. I was feeling a lot of pain having to choose one of them for Diksha initiation. So I spoke to Maharaj about this. I spoke to both of them, and they both shared a similar response. They were both, and they're so loving with each other. So it made me feel very, very much like a family. So I told Maharaj my confusion and my difficulty choosing. And he responded, and I'll just read you, I was looking at this up in my journal. He said the following words. He said, "It's a matter of the heart. All these formalities are not so important. We are all one family. My relationship with you will not change no matter who you choose." And he said it's a matter of the relationship and of gratitude towards that person. So that soothed the pain that I was feeling, that I was afraid that if I chose one, that I would lose my relationship with the other one, or somehow it would become lesser. And I always felt like Maharaj very, very much created that mood of family under Srila Prabhupada. So in one sense, we're all connected, and he demonstrated that again and again by having these yearly retreats, and he would dedicate like the evenings or one day where he would have us speak about Prabhupada, like all the devotees. And even if you were nervous, you had to speak. You had like 10 minutes to speak about Prabhupada or something. So he would encourage us and kind of train us how to appreciate Prabhupada and put him at the center of our lives. And he even made his Vyasa Pujas, he called them Srila Prabhupada Memorial Festivals. So he really created that mood of unity underneath Srila Prabhupada, which I'm eternally grateful for. I just want to end by saying that as painful as this time has been for me and for so many of us, I'm finding so much solace in these discussions and sharing of pastimes. It keeps the heart going. It's like so intense that sometimes the pain it's like my father described, can be like a tsunami wave. It just knocks you down and you don't know how you're gonna ever be able to go on. So thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Shama Kishori, thank you so much for sharing with us. Your mention of Radhadesh brings up so many memories for me. I get to speak a little bit later, so I'll save for that. But thank you so much for sharing. It's wonderful to have you here. We really appreciate you taking the time. So we're still trying to get a hold of Mother Satyasara. If she does get on the call, we'll bring her in. But we're going to go ahead and continue to move on. So we're going to ask Badahari Prabhu, followed by Mother Kosharupa, to speak.
Hare Krishna. Actually, Kosharupa is going to start.
I'm going to break etiquette and follow my husband's request that I speak first. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It's such a joyful and sorrowful time to be with all of you here. Likewise, we've been hearing and chanting and listening to Bhakti Charu Swami sing his bhajans and singing kirtans with memorials all over the world the last few days. And before that, all the kirtans that we were all engaged in to pray for, begging Krishna for Maharaj to stay with us just a little bit longer. And I was remembering the first time I met Bhakti Charu Maharaj was when I was in Vrindavan. I was quite young, and I think it was 83, and I was with one of his servants, somebody who was helping cook prasadam for him, and we were in the Krishna Balaram guest house kitchen in between lunch and dinner, and Maharaj came in. He came in and he had a conversation with both of us and spent a good half an hour with us, and he was showing her some things with cooking and kind of took over, and it was I was thinking, I've never met a Swami like this before, and I was so deeply affected by his demeanor and his very apparent kindness and inclusiveness and everything about him. So I was, completely attracted to him and wanting to get his association whenever, however, and whatever service, humble service I could render. And a few years later, Badahari and I returned from Vrindavan and to Laguna Beach Temple, and it was a very chaotic time in our movement, and many of the spiritual masters had left, or initiating gurus had left, and we were asked to take over managing Prabhupada's temple in Laguna. And we had our service, we were fully engaged, but there was like a tsunami of new devotees that came. There were so many new devotees that came. There were so many serious congregational members that were coming, and we were in such a quandary that, those of you, you raise someone, you preach to someone, you raise them in Krishna consciousness, you care for them like, they're part of your spiritual family. You're very, very protective of their spiritual life. And we'd seen so many devotees, young disciples, be devastated. And we were just by the previous goings on in the society. So, I felt like a mama bear. It was like I wasn't going to let anybody near our new devotees that I didn't completely know and trust and could wholeheartedly recommend and knew their past and knew their character and all of that. And so Badahari and I had discussed it at length, and we were like, okay, the only one we know and trust enough is Bhakti Charu Swami. So we invited Maharaj to come, and to our great delight, not only did he come, and not with any agenda, just please come and help us. We have so many young devotees. Please come and help us train them and preach to them, and some may, want to take shelter of you. So from that time on, he came, and he came at least every year, sometimes more than once a year, and he spent time, and it wasn't an official when he came, he was part of the family. He was we were running a restaurant, and our Sunday feast at that time got about 400 guests, and we were only like 15 devotees. So it was,
we
just
were tired.
everybody was just exhausted. And on Sundays, Bhakti Charu Maharaj would say, "You've all been working so hard. I'm going to cook lunch for everyone." And he'd go in the kitchen and cook lunch for the devotees. And, you know, we'd say, "No, no, no, Maharaj." And he'd say, and he'd insist, and we're like, "Okay, go for it." We're like, "Please, by all means." Just to be able to have the benefit of actually honoring his prasadam. And so, yeah, that was what was, you know, really just flooding through my mind, is those times, all of those very special times in Laguna. And of course, we'll get to hear later Vishwambara's, Prabhu's, and Vrinda Devi's, Vrindavaneshwari's stories of how they took shelter of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and how, yeah, I actually will share, when our children were really young, both of my kids, I mean, I'm talking 1, 2, 3 years old, they would sit through hours of Bhakti Charu Maharaj's classes without making noises, without crying, without anything. They were just, they loved his kirtan, and they would just, and none of the other mothers could believe it. It's like, why are they so quiet? You get to sit in here the whole class. And in addition to the temple devotees, our congregational members, many of them also took shelter and took initiation from Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So he continued, even after we left Laguna, Maharaj continued coming, I think, almost every year to spend time with the devotees there. So just very, very grateful for all of the shelter he gave to all of us. And
Yeah, as Coach just said, when I remembered taking over as temple president, or I don't know if it was, I don't know if you could call it taking over, being taken over by temple presidency. And it was a difficult time. Everything had switched. You know, previously there was some kind, if you were a temple official, there was some kind of authority, and you know, but when we, you know, took up the responsibility, it was, you know, pretty much the devotees had lost a lot of faith, and it was it was a very uncertain time. So to have Maharaj's association at that time was just invaluable, to really see, here was a person with no personal agenda. It was really clear. It was like Coach just said, he just came and he was part of the family. He wasn't you know, such a senior person with so much association with Srila Prabhupada, but he wasn't ordering anybody around, or he was just there with us. And his personal character was just so exemplary. He was so clean, and just such a thorough gentleman, and so friendly, so lighthearted. Actually, he was always very, very lighthearted, and he just made you feel like everything was okay. You know, when you're with him, everything is fine. Yeah, I think somebody mentioned these things before, but if you think of what would a Vaishnava be like, what would a resident of the spiritual world be like, you just have to think of him as being an example of those characteristics. And he did accept many of the devotees as disciples. And we also noted that it wasn't a formality. He really looked after them. He took Vishwambara traveling, which was so cool. And there were other devotees that had trouble in different times, and he was involved. He was concerned. He would reach out to them and bring them to him sometimes, and so it was really really wonderful to see. And his own in his own just personal sadhana was also exemplary, how he behaved as a devotee. I remember he would observe Ekadashi probably all his life, but he would fast the whole day from, I think, liquid also. Every Ekadashi wouldn't take anything. And then early the next morning at just the right time, he would take a mixture, I believe it was like buttermilk mixed with water, and he would drink that and break his fast. And just, these are little things, but everything about his personal character and just the way he lived his life and did everything was just so Krishna conscious and so, beyond Brahminical. I really appreciated what he said. If he does fall down, it'll be to the mode of goodness. that's Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He was like pure goodness. It was beyond goodness, just in everything. And yeah, he was a fantastic cook. And I remember once being in Mayapur, and I believe it was during one of his Vyasa Pujas, and he would invite all of his godbrothers to take prasadam with him. And to date, I haven't had a feast like that in my life. There were just, every prep would be like just a little tiny bit, but they just kept coming and coming and coming. I have no idea how many preparations there were. First, there was all the amazing, Bengali preparations, and then there was Chinese preparations and Italian. It was astounding. I've never seen such a feast. And I don't even remember what it was for, but I remember one time I came to his room in Mayapur to see him about something, and I don't remember what it was for, but I kind of came unannounced, and he was obviously very tired. He was done with the day, but somehow or other he stopped, and he was very, one of my godbrothers is here, please, take care of him. And I was feeling like, I shouldn't have come now. He's very tired, but he just, didn't make any qualms about that. He immediately took on that position. So yeah, so many memories. I think the last time I met him was in South Africa at a Rath Yatra. And we didn't get to talk, but he just immediately came up and gave me a big hug. So that was Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And I feel, I don't know, I guess I feel like I just didn't appreciate him enough. I think that's maybe what happens when we lose somebody and I really appreciate all of your devotees sharing. Thank you so much, because it helps me deepen my appreciation. You see him as a wonderful gentleman, is amazing, but actually, he's an empowered Vaishnava, just really beyond my ability to understand who he is. Who is this person? Is really beyond my ability to understand. But hearing from you and hearing your experiences helps out. I just wish I could have been more appreciative when I knew him. But anyway, I guess that's all. Thank you so much. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj Ki Jai.